Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So very recently there has been a lot of craze and hype around mid AP Ezreal with Smite. I've been seeing Reddit threads about it talking about how the percentage of the win ratio on AP Ezreal mid has increased quite significantly. I've seen Bjergsen play it and tweet about it, and overall just stuff like that. So I thought, you know what, I have to try this out, get a feel for it myself, and then also make a video telling you guys about it, whether you want more information about this AP mid Ezreal with Smite, whether you want to hear my thoughts about it, or you just simply have no idea what this is and your first time hearing about it. So there are very important reasons as to why this actually works, the first of which being the new jungle item called Runeglaive. So let us first go through this item in case you're not really aware of this item and what it does, and also why it specifically makes someone like an Ezreal a lot stronger. So this is the new jungle enchantment item that replaced the old one called Magus that gives AP. So it'll offer you 40 AP, 200 mana, and 10% CDR for an overall cost of 2,250 gold. Now this just seems kind of okay. I mean, this doesn't really make it seem like, oh well, suddenly I should run Smite on Ezreal mid because suddenly this is gonna make him so strong. Well, my young grasshoppers, actually the next part is what we really care about, the passive effect. So this of course does build out of Sheen, and it works like many other Sheen effects, so for instance a Triforce or a Lichbane. And also, again, I'm sure most of you are thinking, why do I want to get this item when I can just go Lichbane instead? Well, the passive on this item, even though it does work very similar to how Lichbane and Triforce work, has a very interesting bonus effect, which pretty much is, after you cast an ability, the next auto attack that you do gets converted, that's the key word, converted, to deal magic damage. It doesn't simply add the magic damage to your auto attack or to your base AD, it simply converts it all to being magic damage. Now Ezreal, having his Q ability being treated like an auto attack, pretty much incorporates both of these aspects in one, having his Q, which normally deals physical damage, now deal magical damage. Now of course the stats that this item offers in terms of the bonus damage on your next auto attack are not as strong as Lichbane, but at the same time it is also much cheaper. So the point of this is to get your power spike on AP Ezreal mid much sooner than you normally would while getting a Lichbane. But what's really cool is the fact that not only is it converting your Q damage to magic damage whenever you proc it with the spell item, of course meaning that any magic penetration like a Void Staff will benefit much more greatly and you'll deal overall a lot more damage, but your Q is also now able to proc Luden's Echo passive effect, which of course prior to was not possible. So all in all, this means that your Q now deals magic damage, which of course you benefit heavily off of since you are building magic items. You finally get a bit of AoE on your Q thanks to this jungle item as well, and it also ends up proccing Luden's Echo. And you get the power spike much sooner. Oh yeah, and by the way, you probably want to get the red jungle item called Skirmisher's Saber because it gives you a lot of stats that you really want to use. It gives Ezreal some serious dueling power, especially in the laning phases. Q procs the effect of skirmishers dealing the true damage, and it helps you survive against people diving you, especially assassins, since you take 20% less damage from the person that you smited. So judging from all that, it seems like this item has been more or less made for AP Ezreal mid. But next, let's go into the positives of this overall build and why you should play it. So the most obvious thing is that of course you have Smite as a summoner spell, and this helps you in the laning phase quite tremendously because Ezreal, especially AP Ezreal, is going to have a lot of issues in the laning phase, and even more so when you try to CS because your auto attacks aren't going to be doing a whole lot, and you really don't have the mana just yet to spam your Q for every last hit. Or you can trick out your opponent where you throw the Q and then smite the minion that's in the way, kill it, and then the Q goes right through and hits your opponent. It gives Ezreal decent dueling power now with skirmishers since he never really had it before, which you saw me do on the Kog'Maw earlier in the laning phase. He finally gets a bit of AoE on something other than his ultimate because let's be honest, as great as his ultimate is when it comes to wave clearing, you can't be using it every single wave, especially when the enemy team is pushing into you. So this is a nice little bonus effect even though it's not really a whole lot of AoE. His Q is magical damage, which procs Luden's Echo. You have a much earlier power spike than Lichbane AP Ezreal. This is extremely important because prior to this it would take a little too long for AP Ezreal to get strong and just overall become relevant. You're definitely going to want 40% CDR when you're running this build because you want to poke as much and as often as possible, so naturally you're going to have very strong poke and harass. You're going to have insane damage on your ultimate as AP Ezreal while also having low CDR, and apparently it also procs a spell and blade weaving from your masteries in the offensive tree off of 1 Q, both being considered an auto attack and a spell. So there are definitely a lot of positives as to why you want to play this new AP mid Ezreal with Smite taking the Runeglaive item. But as with anything in life, there's the good parts and and there's definitely the bad parts. So next, let's talk about the negatives. So all in all, at the end of the day, your wave clear is still somewhat minimal without relying on your ultimate. Yeah, the nice little AoE that this jungle item gives for your Q is nice, but it's not really completely game changing and suddenly you have the wave clear of a Varus or a Xerath. You are extremely skill shot oriented as AP Ezreal since your auto attacks are next to non-existent. The laning phase is very tough as well because you are so darn weak up until you get your main items, which is something I have found out the hard way as I was playing with my friends. I mean, you have to play this quite a bit to really understand when the power spike happens on this build. So up until you get the jungle item, and especially once you get the Luden's Echo, you're kind of weak. And CSing, I promise you, unless you start with a Doran's Blade, is going to be difficult. You still offer next to no CC, you have huge mana issues if you don't opt for the Archangel Staff build, and overall the jungle item is going to fall off extremely late into the game, so 40 plus minutes. At which point I just switched it out for a Lich Bane, but again, this is until you get to very late on into the game. And to close all this off, let's finally talk about the item build, the runes, and the masteries. So you want to start either a Doran's Ring or Bottle, but you can go for a Doran's Blade if you have a lot of issues CSing. The very core items that you want is you want to get the Tear of the Goddess ASAP, followed by the Sheen, get the jungle item upgraded to Runeglaive, finish off the Luden's Echo, get your Lucidity boots, and then finish off the Archangel Staff. Following that, you probably want the Rabadons and Void Staff. Zhonya's is not a bad option, and Rylai's is also a pretty good option since your Q dealing magical damage applies the slow on a single target. I have Lich Bane in there because again, if the game lasts super long, you probably want to sell your jungle item for a Lich Bane because it does scale better. For the masteries, I go a somewhat simple 2109, utilizing the 2 spell and blade weavings in the offensive tree, and specking into utility because you do stack up a lot of mana, and you want the biscuits for extra health. And for the runes is where it gets a little more tricky. Since you want to get the 40% CDR, and since the Runeglaive item gives you 10% CDR, you have 5% for masteries, and you have the Lucidity boots offering you 15%, that's an overall 30%. So for the blue runes, I have enough just to give me 10% CDR at level 18 to cap it out at 40. If you so choose, you can also have no CDR in the blues and just simply rely on having blue buff for the extra 10%, but I don't recommend that. And the rest is honestly quite straightforward. Magic Pen reds, HP per level yellows, flat AP quints. Overall, this is a pretty sweet build for AP Ezreal mid, finally bringing him back. And one new thing I kind of want to do in my videos like this is give an overall rating to these champions from 1 to 10, 5 being average, 10 being completely overpowered, and 1 being you don't want to play it. And for this specific build with Ezreal, I want to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely stronger than just any average build, but I don't think it's overpowered, and I think there's still many other better options to play mid lane and solo queue especially. However, while people are simply not aware of how strong this can be or when it really power spikes, you might want to abuse it. But that is it for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, please definitely throw in a like, share it with your friends, subscribe if you haven't, and before I end it off, I want to give a quick shout out to one of my sponsors, Alpha Draft, where you can draft fantasy LCS teams. You can enter for free or use money, it's completely up to you, but you can also win money regardless of how you enter. It really is a lot of fun and I highly recommend checking it out. I'll have a link down below. But thank you guys so much for watching and I hope to see you for the next video. Peace.